Yes, it's true. After years of boring numbers, smart real estate investors are tracking foreclosures again. Of course, it's helpful to look at national delinquency numbers. We're going to show you those. It's crucial to know which loan type has the highest number of borrowers missing payments. Yeah, we're going to show you those. But the smartest investors are looking right now in the Southern California market. We're going to show you those numbers too. Plus, if you are too cheap to pay to track foreclosures in your neighborhood, stick around to the end for the hot tip. Hey there, Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We have been helping buyers and sellers get deals done since the global financial crisis. It's time for the Southern California Foreclosure Report. ICE Mortgage Monitor giving us the numbers we need at a national level so we can see the delinquency rate is up per the most recent numbers, which are from August. This is their October report. So we're seeing more people that are 90 days plus late. There is an increase. But let's put this into perspective. So foreclosure starts, those are actually down month over month, though up almost 6% year over year. Point is that even with these increases we're seeing at the national level, these are still below pre-pandemic levels. Let's look at some charts to show you just how these compare to pre-pandemic levels. So here's the national delinquency rate and gives us the context. That blue line is at 3.43% currently. You can see how it compares to years past, and that gray line, that's the 2000 to 2005 average, so before the global financial crisis. So we're below that. What are these big, huge spikes? Well, that's the global financial crisis, that big one. And then that second one is COVID. That is when we had the mortgage forbearance programs go into effect. A lot of folks stopped making payments, and a lot of them, it was just precautionary. Since then, we can see that delinquency in mortgages has dropped, and it is below normal levels. At any given point in time, there are going to be people that are delinquent on their mortgages in any market. Where it gets interesting is where you break it down by loan type. There's 4 product types for loans. FHA originates and has a certain number of loans. VA has a certain origination number of loans. GSE, those are the government-sponsored entities like Fannie and Freddie. Then the rest of the mortgages are portfolio, and investors holding them in their portfolio. We're seeing a higher rate of delinquency of non-current borrowers in FHA loans. Now, if you look at the black line, the FHA loans tend to be at a higher rate of delinquency traditionally. Now, that green line, those are portfolios. So those are special loan types that aren't going to be FHA, VA, or purchased by Fannie or Freddie, or Ginnie also buys them. The portfolio loans, we saw that big spike during the global financial crisis because that's where subprime loans were. Those were portfolio products. And then looking at the spike during COVID, FHA and VA loans took a big spike. We actually didn't see as much of a spike in portfolio. Why is that? Well, in some cases, those loans actually were not protected by mortgage forbearance programs. It was FHA, VA, GSE loans that had the special mortgage forbearance, and those programs have ended for all of those now. So the VA special protections just ended at the end of April in 2025. FHA just ended at the end of September 2025. So in these numbers, we actually are still counting delinquent loans that are still protected under the FHA Special Protection Program. So we could see a spike and an increase in non-current loans going forward. We're going to keep tracking. Always helpful to see what's going on at the national level. Let's take a look at the properties in the foreclosure process in Southern California. California is a non-judicial foreclosure state, which means there's a process that's followed. Don't have to go in front of a judge to start it. First step in the process, after a payment's missed, minimum of 120 days later, the notice of default can be filed, and that's what we're looking at here. We can see in certain places in Southern California a dramatic year-over-year increase in this first phase of the foreclosure process. All counties, it's up year-over-year, in many cases dramatically up year-over-year, except for Orange County. For some reason, we're seeing a drop. We'll keep tracking that to see. We do find that in crunching these numbers, occasionally there are errors, which drives us crazy, but it is what it is. This goes back to 2015. In 2015, we're still coming out of the global financial crisis. But when you compare to 2011, which was even deeper in the global financial crisis, At this point in time, notices of default, we're starting to actually drop, but we're not there. So we're not at the notice of default levels that we had back in 2011, but this is an increase. So now the next phase, which we're going to show you, the notice of trustee sale, that can be filed 90 days later, and that will actually have a sale date on it. And what we haven't seen, crunching these numbers and doing these reports, we hadn't seen that increase in the notice of default transition into the notice of trustee sale. Well, we're starting to see that. We've been seeing it in the past few reports. So there's an increase in this second phase. So people have continued to stay behind on their payments and are now moving deeper into the foreclosure process. So now again, perspective and context. 2011, we had significantly more numbers, but when you compare, LA is easy to see, we're at a level that you had going back to about 2017 for properties that have a notice of trustee sale filed. The other important point is 120 days, then 90 days, and 21 days later for the sale itself. That's the fastest the process could move. Often takes much longer. Nationally, usually takes around 800 and 900 days. Real estate owned. So these are properties where they actually went to the auction block and they went back to the bank. They are owned by the bank that foreclosed on the property. And these numbers are low because, well, we had a foreclosure moratorium going on for a while, and we had those forbearance programs going on for a while. We do have a slight spike in some counties, although year over year, for real estate owned properties, we're down in Los Angeles. How does this compare historically? Much lower numbers when we even look at 2015, and then dramatically lower numbers. I mean, look at that. Now, not all properties go back to the bank because there's third parties that buy at the trustee sale, or some of these properties don't even make it to trustee sale because they're purchased. So this puts it into perspective. Look, we don't have a significant flow of REO properties yet that are going to be hitting the market, and we're nowhere near where they were during crazier days, knowing that in Southern California, we're seeing an increase in notices of default, and we're also seeing an increase in the notices of trustee sale. And ultimately, they may end up going to the auction block. What should you be doing? If you're a real estate investor or a buyer who wants to get a foreclosure deal, sign up at foreclosure.com. They're one of our partners. In fact, we just did an interview with them where we were talking about what's going on with the Southern California market. What's great here is you're going to be able to track what's going on in your county, city, zip code, whatever you want to look at. And look, if you can't spend $40 a month to track the properties in your neighborhood and get a smoking deal, at the very least sign up for a free preview. They will go ahead and send you the properties in your zip code that have a foreclosure filing against them, and you can do more research. We have a link below so that you can do that. If you consider yourself an investor of any sort, you really should be signed up here. SB 1079 turned the entire California foreclosure market on its head. Watch this next video or you won't understand what happened.